Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Hi. How's it going?
Good. Are we the only ones here so far?
So far, but it's being recorded.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing? What's going on over there?
Not much. Just had an interesting conversation that I can tell you about later.
Okay. So
So it's almost 8:30. I'm not used to seeing you without glasses on.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't see you now.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You look so smart. How was your day?
It was good. It was good. Yeah. A lot of good things. Yeah, feels good. And I got to be in touch with both my kids, so that was good.
Well, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Did any decisions? Or no. Oh,
Yeah, in 5 days, he said, just block your day out and we'll talk. And I said, okay. So 5 days he'll have gone to all of the things. So, yeah. Good. Hey, Kiva.
Oh, I forgot my headphones. I'm gonna run down and get them.
Okay.
It's more private. Sorry. Hold on one second.
No problem. Kiva, are you there?
Hey, just getting on audio right now.
Okay, I see you're frozen, but I don't know if you know that.
No, I hopefully it'll figure itself out. It looks good on my end so far.
Okay. Well, okay. Hopefully we'll be able to see you. There you are. So I think Rachel will not be joining us today.
Okay.
Hey, Melinda.
Hey.
So, and I think Dr. Paul, he sent a message saying, I couldn't tell if he was saying he got his eyes dilated today. And so I think that means he's not going to join us, but I don't know. Okay, yeah, it looks like he will not, but hopefully Darren will.
So how's the weather out there?
It was a little overcast today, but it's getting there. Like, you know, spring is sort of eating its way in.
Yeah.
You know.
I still have a pile of snow in my driveway.
Oh no.
Not a big pile, but there's a pile of snow there still.
Wow.
Yeah, it hasn't quite melted.
Yeah, that's what happens in Boston, right?
That's what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's wait one more minute and see if Darren. Oh, Paul, great. Well, Paul, I'm not going to ask you to read anything.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do the first meditation.
Actually, I was going to ask y'all to write today, though, but you can.
Oh, you know what? I don't have my book with me. Should I go grab it?
Yeah, today I think you'll need your book, and if you have your journal as well, that would be helpful.
Okay. Okay.
Orange one.
You look way too comfortable.
Who, Susie?
Yeah.
What did you say? What did she say?
She said you look way too comfortable.
Oh, And I kind of have to climb into this chair the way it's all rigged up. But
It's all good. It's a good meditation chair, actually.
I know it is actually.
It's great.
Just trying to keep Bella from being rambunctious.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I know Rachel is not going to join us. She's trying to finish up grad school, and it's really overwhelming. So she's going to miss today, but I'm hoping Darren will join us at some point. But in the meantime, let's start with the meditation to just come into the space. Okay. Okay, so when you're ready, go ahead and get yourself comfortable and just start to focus inward and just to notice how your body is doing right now in this moment. And just notice your breath. Notice your breath and notice what it's doing. Focusing on your inhales and your exhales. Notice which one is longer, or if they're both the same. And note too that if your exhales are a little bit longer, that actually serves to calm your parasympathetic system. And so not to necessarily force anything, we're just noticing what's happening in our bodies. But also to know that that is a mindfulness practice, and it's a great opportunity if you need it. That you can take a breath in inhale, and then as you exhale, take a little bit longer with it to exhale. And it really will calm you down. So if you're stressed or whatever, that's a really great practice to come back to peace and calmness and just some lowering your anxiety. And then just notice what's coming up for you, if anything. Notice if you've got a little bit of monkey mind going on with ideas or thoughts rattling around your brain. And just remember too, to be compassionate with yourself whenever you're in your meditation or a guided practice or any kind of mindfulness practice. Be compassionate to yourself. No judgment. When the monkey mind comes up, it's not to feel like there's a problem with that, because remember, our brains think thoughts. That's what they're meant to do. But we're not our brains. We're not only our brains, we're so much more. And so we can pay attention to when those thoughts come up. We can just notice them. And when you're ready, take a deep breath in and hold it at the top. And then slowly release it. And when your next inhale, go ahead and flutter your eyes open and come into the space. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to our last week of class. I'm excited and sad all at the same time. So just so you know, so tonight we're going to kind of do some very practical kind of work. A lot of what we've done so far has been, question and answer, which has been great. There's been, some meditation and all of those things, but a lot of the work that we've done in the book so far I've kind of asked you to do it on your own. And tonight, I'd like to really focus on what your life might be like tomorrow, right? When you're, moving from here to there, moving to be in this course to beyond, what does that look like? And so I want to help us to do that together. Not that, and each one of your plans is going to look very different from each other, but I want to make sure that when you leave tonight and when we end tonight, that you feel confident that you're able to move forward. And we'll talk about what that might look like, what support might look like in the future and all of that. So I've been doing some thinking about that as well today. So before I start, how many of you were able to go through the journal? There's a lot in that last chapter in the journal, lots and lots of questions. Does anybody want to go through that? There's, it goes through, first of all, the takeaways, the mindfulness practice 25, and then it starts off with your mindfulness practice planner, and then it asks question upon question upon question. And so we're not going to go through that necessarily tonight, that we might touch on some of those, but I strongly encourage you to think about those questions. And that doesn't even have to take a long time. I mean, if you set it yourself, you set aside something like, if you could probably get through the questions in 20 minutes if you just wanted to write a sentence for each one. But there are some questions there that really ask you to think about what's going to stop you and how do you move forward despite those challenges. So some of that, like I said, we'll get to tonight, but I just wanted to know where folks were. Does anybody want to just respond to that? You've been through it, or you've asked the questions already, or where you are?
I actually didn't go through those questions, but I've been thinking about, I guess because I was writing on my computer and not in the journal, and so I kind of to look there, so sorry. But I've been thinking about a plan, and as I kind of look through all on the website, I look through all the mindfulness practices, thinking about the fact that this was sort of a quick survey, and we did the purpose of our life in 3 minutes, and then the next doubts, and we kind of went through it quickly. So I wanted to think about how I was going to go back and really spend time. And I looked and saw, so many different meditations that I kind of wanted to go through slowly and probably several times, because it takes more than one time of doing that meditation to come up with the purpose of your life or go through thorns or whatever. So I'm a little bit stuck on what to do. And I guess because I want to both make sure I'm accountable, because I'm a little worried that after this class ends, I'm not going to stick to something. And just sort of not wanting to put myself on too much of a time frame, because I don't know how long it's going to take me to kind of go through each one. So I was just throwing that out there, and I don't know if anyone else is coming up with the same kind of questions.
Yeah, those are beautiful questions. And I think by the time we get through tonight, hopefully we will have answered them in terms of what this might look like. And also maybe do some brainstorming with you all, so that we can support each other in this work too, to try to think about, hey, this is a good idea. Oh, that might be for me. Hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. So, but let's go through, let's, if you would, I do want to kind of be specific, because I was very methodical when I wrote this chapter in terms of figuring out what people might need going forward. And so the takeaways, for example, so I came up with 10 takeaways starting on page 173. And I just wanted to know, were there any in particular that that resonated for you, that you either had questions about, or that struck you, or any of those?
For me, coming from a place of love is I mean, it fills a lot of purpose. It also, I think, affects the expansion and the contraction. It kind of opens the door for that next one. And I don't mean like anything that happens or someone upsets me, I'm going to love them, but to come from a place of compassion, but more for myself. I mean, it's for the other party who's maybe upsetting me or being not fair or just nasty or whatever the word is. But it really is I realized through this practice that it's for my benefit. It allows me to reshape what's going on, the situation, and to take the power away from that situation, from the feelings that feeling that I have, that contracting feeling that I have when somebody is really being a jerk and not seeing things, whatever. So to me, that is, if I can reframe that and just say, okay, they're not coming from a place to hurt me personally, or, that let's just kind of give them compassion and let's work at this through a compassionate ear. Now, in negotiations, sometimes it's not possible for that other side to see that fairness, but I mean, that is my goal.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, I think that was honestly, when I wrote that, that's a really hard one for me, or it has been in the past. It definitely was a challenging one for me, and I'm not saying I do it 100% of the time, but that's a practice also. I find that one particularly challenging if somebody's triggering you in some way or making you feel like that they've got an agenda to be, they're gunning for you or something like that. Or if you're really irritated about something else and then you get an irritating message or phone call or something like that, and you're like, it's really hard to come from love at that point. That's where the mindfulness practice comes in, to take a deep breath and recognize in the moment, which is always the big challenge, right? And that, again, is a practice. It's like a muscle that you build, but that, in the moment, being, oh, wow, this has nothing to do with this person in front of me. This has to do with what just happened. Or maybe it does have to do with the person in front of me. How am I going to handle this coming from a place of, if not love, then like you're saying, compassion at least, So, that breathing into that space. Yeah, that's the practice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of that, I've been trying to work on that as well. And I find that if I think about the fact that everyone's doing the best they can do, it kind of decreases my reaction to things and kind of gives me a little bit of pause.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I think, and other people are triggered by their own stuff, right? So we all can only behave at the level, we're always going to behave hopefully at the highest level we are capable of in that moment. And that's a stretch. I get that may not be true for everyone, and some people just don't care. But the idea is to know that however people are operating, they are doing the best they can for the most part.
Right, even if it's not so great.
Yeah, even if it's not so great, or even, quite honestly, if it's not even true. Right. Maybe they're operating they're just irritated. They don't want to do anything, but like they're just irritating. And you could sit there and say they're doing the best they can. It may or may not be true, but how are you, like, what you can control is you, right? When we come to a situation, what do we want to bring? Yeah.
That really resonates with me. There's this thing going around, and basically it's speaking to what you just mentioned, and also an empathy building skill of, like, you know, sometimes most people are trying to do their best most times, but, you know, sometimes our best just isn't that great that day. And to remember that we have days, like I have days where like I'm trying to do my best, but that day my best isn't going to be that great. And so using that to ground myself and have a little bit more empathy for folks, but it's just been so helpful and just, you know, really connecting with what Melanie was saying about that expansion and like contracting, like when I'm feeling judgmental or whatever negative emotion, like I have that contracted feeling. So when I come from love or compassion or empathy, then I have that, okay, more expanded and open feeling. And I feel so much more free and just able to move easier in my life.
Yeah, beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, I do think it's, yeah, I mean, these are all practices, right? They're not perfect, they're practices. So, you know, they're the one that I also love is, which is another hard, you know, challenging practice for me is practicing allowing, you know, that number 6, that we are, you know, when we're fighting. I mean, this morning was a great example. I was driving I had to get to a place and I literally hit every single red light along the way. And I had left a little bit later than I wanted to, but no big deal. Like I had plenty of time, but there was traffic everywhere and the red lights. And I laughed my way through. I seriously laughed my way through the ride. Like I was like, wow, another red light. Wow, okay, you know. And I got there, it was literally, you know, I think I was 2 minutes later than when the clock struck, and nothing had started, nothing, like there was no reason for me to have gotten there 2 minutes earlier and, you know, stressed about it or anything. I didn't stress, I literally laughed my way through it. It was such a great way to start the day, I have to say. So that's, I mean, again, that's kind of a practice, but yeah, anyway. Anything else from those 10? Anybody wants to share?
I think for me too, the expansion versus contraction has been sort of the biggest takeaway from the book. Just in terms of paying attention to how I feel about something, either relationships or kind of across the board. I've just found that incredibly helpful to kind of pay more attention to how something is making me feel, you know, to try and come at stuff with love and compassion, but really to pay attention to how something is making me feel, to sort of trust my reactions more and my gut more, or not my gut, but not my conditioned self, but my, you know, my inner self.
Inner self, your inspired self, your
right.
intuitive self, all those things.
So to me, that's been really, really helpful.
That's great.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
It's just so, they're such vivid examples.
Great. It's really great. I was wondering if you want to go through the Mindfulness Practice 25 together. The one where it kind of goes through and asks you some questions in a meditative state. And then when we come out of that, we could actually go take some notes on some of the questions that are in there. How does that sound to you? I don't want to repeat if this is something you've done already on your own. Have folks done it already? You have done it already? Yeah.
I think it's always different doing it with you in class. So I think it's worth doing again.
Okay, yeah. And sometimes it's good, like, I always think about every time I do the Finding Your Purpose meditation, I ask the question myself and see if the same thing comes up or something new comes up. So if, you know, in the last, whatever, year or two, it's been very consistent. But that's good information for me too, to know, oh yeah, I'm still, you know, I'm headed on this particular path. And your purpose could change over the course of your life as you grow and change and find things that are more interesting or you're drawn to or whatever. So that's why I think it's always good to do it anyway. But okay, let's do that together. Yeah, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna give you some more extra time to consider as we go. So I'll do it a little slower than probably what's on the recording. So if you can just find yourself in a seated position, obviously in a comfortable position, and breathe. And focus on your inhales and your exhales. And on your inhale, just notice if there's anything going up and going on in your body or in your mind that is taking your attention. And on your exhale, see if you can let go of any distractions that are coming into your awareness. That may mean to breathe some space or some compassion or some gratitude into whatever arises for you. And then when you're ready, consider how you want to feel in your life. How do you want to feel in your life? As much or as often as possible. Maybe what comes up for you is you want to feel happy or joyful or open or expansive or inspired or creative. Any of those things, whatever words come up for you, how you want to feel most often in your life. Whatever you choose, and maybe there's more than one thing, breathe in that feeling. Breathing in and exhale on your inhales and exhales, just focusing on that feeling and just notice where in your body you feel that. And just keep breathing into that feeling. And if anything comes up along the way that distracts you from that feeling, see if you can come back to that feeling as soon as you can, as soon as possible. So you can sustain that feeling as long as you like in a meditative state. Your body is getting used to that feeling. Even just having that feeling sustained is like working a muscle, because our bodies are not used to staying in an expansive or creative or open or joyful or happy space for too long. Our egos, our conditioned self, tends to come in pretty quickly to distract us from it. And so I'm inviting you to just come back to that feeling and stay with it. As long as is comfortable, feels good to you. See if it can grow at all. And then when you're ready, consider how you want to be in your life, how you want to show up as you interact with others. It's not a concern of how you want them to see you, but rather, how do you want to show up in other people's presence? You want to be open, present, welcoming, with a smile, with compassion, with love. You get to choose. And then see if you can breathe into that feeling. Immersing yourself in that state of being. and know that the mindfulness practice is as simple as remembering that you can choose this feeling anytime you interact, either during an interaction when you remember it, or even before you interact with another person. And then when you're ready, consider what you would like to do in your life. If you're thinking about a purpose in your life, what would you like to use your gifts for? What would it feel like to be using your gifts more often? What would that feel like, and where do you feel that in your body? That sense of purpose, that sense of being and doing exactly as your higher self would choose, would want, would show up. And then when you're ready, consider asking yourself, is there something that I can shift in my life to use my gifts more often? Is there something I need to do or shift in my own mindfulness practice or in my own transformation that will infuse my life with more meaning? What action can I take today to head in that exact direction? What am I open to? What is waiting to emerge? Just notice what comes up for you. And when you're ready, take another deep breath and flutter your eyes open, and welcome back. And I'm going to invite you to open your journals to page 62 and consider the questions that I asked and what came up for you. You can write whatever reflections you want, but if you want something more specific, the questions I asked, like it might be good to write down what came up. So when I asked how you want to feel in your life as much or as often as possible, what came up for you first? So I'll give you a minute for that, and then I'll go on to the next question, because there's a whole bunch of questions I was asking here. So the first one is how you want to feel in your life as much or as often as possible. So if the first question is how you want to feel in your life, the second question is how you want to be in your life, how you want to show up as you interact with other people. And then the next question, when you're ready, is to consider what you'd like to do in your life. Right? So what you would like to use your gifts for. And then the last question there that I did was, what can I shift in my life to use my gifts more often? What can I do to infuse my life with more meaning? What am I open to? What is waiting to emerge? And the last question I want to ask, which was not part of the meditation, is what would your heaven on earth look like? What would it mean to be living your best life? What would it look like? What would it feel like? What might it even sound like? But I need more time. So I'm going to pause here before we move on and just ask the question. Anybody want to share what came up for you? You don't have to, but I want to give the opportunity to. Sometimes, especially when we're thinking about this stuff, we're feeling about this stuff, it's really helpful to say it out loud. It sort of makes it, it makes it, well, we know, first of all, articulating your hopes and dreams and all of that actually makes it more likely to, you're putting it out in the universe, but it's also, you are motivated. You're more motivated when you hear your voice actually saying the words. So I offer that to you if you don't want to take, take this opportunity. If you don't, there's no pressure.
I'll do it. It's how do you want to be in life? I want to be more connected, caring, loving, positive, not sarcastic, and not negative.
That's great. those are all serious mindfulness practices, right? Especially if, as we all are, coming from, self, that can be kind of negative. I mean, some people have quote unquote sunny dispositions, whatever that means. And they, maybe they have a little bit of easier time with this, but I just know, I mean, in my own experience, those negative thoughts can come up. They can come up again and again. Yeah. So it's great. Paul, thank you. Anyone else?
All right.
I think for me, it's been interesting seeing what comes up for me each time I do this. So, I've listened to the meditation several times now. And then I took a few notes as we were doing the meditation together. And then and then it differed from what I just wrote down afterwards. And so it's been interesting to see, how that kind of ebbs and flows and what's more important to me some days, or just how I'm perceiving different things. So I'm just enjoying that practice of just identifying what exactly I'm dreaming about.
That's so good, because it also makes your intention a little bit more complicated, right? That it's not just, straight, but that also, what typically happens when we're thinking about setting some big intention, or thinking about what's our future going to look like, or what do we intend to do, and how do we want to go about living our best life. Sometimes it's like brainstorming, where you've got so many different things. And then little by little, as you do it more and more, you're like, oh, there's these couple of words that keep coming up over and over again. That's probably what I'm most interested in pursuing. And the other stuff may or may not come along, doesn't matter so much, but it's sort of like, it makes me think of being in school, and like you do this you have this breadth of research that you do to learn all you can about a specific topic. And then as you're writing your research paper, whatever, you have to whittle it down into something that is comprehensible. And so it sounds like that's what's you're in, right? Beautiful process you're going through. That's great. It's really great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Anyone else want to share? Anybody want to share what your heaven on earth might look like, or feel like, or sound like?
When we did the meditation, a word that kept, and a feeling that kept coming up over and over and over is calm. Is a sense of calm. And as each question that we went through, it kind of built in my meditation, it just built one on top of the other. And calm, ease, joy, and what can I do to shift my life for these to emerge, I guess, wanting to emerge, is becoming the master of my emotions through the practices. And I feel that through doing all that, the last question, my heaven on earth, what does that look like? It's just full. It's abundance. It's anything I want to make it. And that's the hard part for me, is that I'm thinking, we're supposed to, I mean, I shouldn't say supposed, but I think that it helps if we verbalize and put in writing exactly what we want. I want to be like you, a professor. I want to write a book. I want to have concrete visions. And I would just, unfortunately, I don't know if I'm supposed to or not supposed to, but I just haven't. For me, it's all about being able to control my thoughts and feelings and emotions, and bring that confidence that will create abundance in whatever way or shape, form. It could be wealth, it could be health, it could be, so I don't know. And that was a question I was going to ask, is do I have to be more specific to get those things? And Or is that too vague?
I love the question, and it, you know, it brings up a whole bunch of different ideas in my head. And different, I will say, you know, in all my research, all my studying, and all my, you know, teachers, that one has something to say that's different than the next, that's different than the next. A lot of people talk a lot about setting, you know, doing vision boards and all of that kind of thing. And you see in this book, in my book, I talk a little bit about, you know, setting intention, having a vision, all of that. I think having a kind of a broad vision of the direction that you're headed, that's what works for me. For some folks, they really want to see that outcome. That's what will get them motivated to move in that direction. And that's great. That's fine too. Like I'm more of the line along the lines of what works for you in your life. I've tried vision boards. I've done some. I like it. It's kind of a fun endeavor, but whenever it starts feeling like, oh, I got to get this thing and I'm really attached to the outcome, that's when it's no good anymore. Like that's really, to me, you're doing the opposite. Now you're attaching to an outcome that you feel like you have to have, and therefore you're minimizing the opportunities. Does that make sense? So what I like to do, and again, this isn't mine, other people have said this, is the idea of feeling into, either in meditation or just by sitting here, feeling into what it might feel like to, you know, so I think I wrote in here about the idea that I wanted to, that someday I'd like to be able to write on, or have a beach house. And I have an image in my head of what that might look like, but I'm not tied to where it is, which beach and all of that, where some folks will say, oh, you need to know exactly, and then it'll show up. And maybe it will. It doesn't work for me. That feels very confining to me. And that's what I go by. If that gave me, to have it that specific, gave me this expansive feeling and this feeling of freedom in particular, then that might be a good way for you. For me, it doesn't do that. For me, it feels constricting because I feel like I can just throw it out there as I would like to, you know, be on the beach at some point, you know, having some access to a home of some sort that's overlooking the ocean. Like that's this image in my head. What I focus on though isn't what the house looks like. It's the feeling I get from listening, from maybe I'm on my computer and I'm writing and I look up and I see the ocean and I can hear the ocean waves. Mm-hmm. Oh, you know, like that feeling, that's almost like that's my happy place. You know, it's one of my happy places, right? So that can be even an anchor for me in some of the more challenging meditations. I can go back to that whole idea. And when you fully embody in your, you know, you imagine your body in that space that feels so wonderful, that's so good for your health. I mean, it does a million things for you, not the least of which is to actually bring you some sense of peace. So I'm really glad you asked that question, because I think that a lot of people will be very specific about, you know, here's what you have to do. And, you know, and there's a lot of people making a lot of money, you know, selling that, you know, and just sign up with me and I'll give you the 10 steps and boom, you've got it made and everything will come to you. And that's again, I'm not trying to cut anybody down. Like if it works for folks, that's awesome. It's not my way. It's not the way that works for me personally. Mm-hmm. But I have nothing, you know, if that works for you, to really be specific, there's lots of people who follow that, had great success.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't work for me, but I want something specific, I suppose. And, I mean, we all want to be comfortable and have security and things like that. But to me, the feeling of just knowing that everything's going to be okay is just more powerful. And I guess there's a bit of faith there that says, if I can do this and I can do this and I can I can't control the world or what happens or how somebody treats me, but I can control how I respond and how I feel, and I can keep shift my mindset to a certain way that I don't even have to think about the gifts that are out there.
Yes, yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. If I was stuck on the idea of the ocean as like, I've got to live my life by the ocean, I wouldn't be in Colorado, right? I would like literally be making efforts to figure out how do I get to the ocean, right? And I'm not. That's just not where I'm putting my efforts in. I like thinking about it. I like feeling about it. But it's not right now in my life. That's not, that's sort of a dream I have down the road. I have no doubt that if I felt like, if that took precedence, that I wouldn't have already made that happen. It just,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to monopolize, but it kind of reminds me of like when you put such a goal, then it's like that's your end goal.
Yeah.
And then there's, when you talked about how you never believed how big you could dream, how big your want was, or what your life purpose was by putting something so specific.
Yeah, because then what? You get that. Are you done? And people say who follow that very specific path and say I want the houseboat, or I want the whatever it is, like the end goal. I want this kind of car or something. Again, no, if that works, great. But what tends to happen, what they say happens, is once they get that, then they've got another goal and another goal and another goal. But to me, it's those kinds of things feel, how do I say this, a little bit more conditioned, a little more egocentric, which is just not really where I'm interested in pursuing. It's not, that's just not, and I'm not going to say I don't own things. Of course I do, but it's not really what drives me, Yeah. And we know also, we know from all the research that if what drives you is to have the boat, that's not happiness. Like people who have the boat, or I don't know why I'm using that as an example, but people who have the boat aren't any more happy than people who don't, don't have a boat. So the happiness has to be, if that's what you're looking for, it has to be much bigger in my mind. And we have the capacity for so much more than just owning a boat, And then you think about the story of Steph and you think, well, I don't know if y'all had a chance to look at that video, but it's like, you own a boat and now you got to figure out where to keep the boat and how to clean the boat and how to, all of that stuff. And you're like, was this really what I wanted? By the end of the day, you're like, I'm not sure this is, this is as much of a blessing as I had envisioned it would be. So to me, the feeling, like going towards what is the thing that's going to make me feel expansive. And it doesn't have to be a thing. It might be the way I am in the world, or the interactions I have, or the people I get to meet, or the way I'm interacting, or all the other things. Yeah. Those are the things that personally make me feel the things that you were saying, like, well, I mean, they give me a sense of purpose. Yeah. Yeah. Other thoughts or questions, or anybody want to share? Okay, I'm going to ask a few more questions that, and I'm going back to page, oh no, I'm going ahead. I'm just going to do the first couple of questions and give you time to actually respond if you haven't. And I'm not going to do all of them, just the first two or three, because I think that some of them are really simple, or quick anyway, I would hope. So the first one on 66 is, how often do you plan to practice mindfulness? Is it daily, twice a day, every time you're waiting in line, when you're in traffic, when you're brushing your teeth? Like, I think it's important to have this actually written down, because this is now an intention. This is now your intention. Now, that doesn't mean that every time you're brushing your teeth, if you put it down as you're brushing your teeth and you forget when, you know, the next couple of times you brush your teeth, the idea is it's a practice to remember, right? Oh yeah, I said that. And to come back and look at this periodically, I think is helpful too. So that's why I think it's good to write it here, and then you have it, you'll have access to it later. Suze, did you do this part already?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so great. It could be when you wake up and when you go to sleep. The next question is, what might your practice entail? So is it, you know, what do you want it to look like? So I think I shared with you my practice. Actually, some of this I didn't share with you. My practice is very different than what I teach now, because I teach people who are typically maybe not necessarily starting out, but who have been perhaps doing it a specific way for years or something like that. And so I just offer what works for you, like what fits into your life the best. And as you know, I'm very much about making the practice your own, or the practices your own. So for me, you know, I might teach some of these practices, the 25 mindfulness practices that are online that you have access to. They all come back to, you know, they all start off with focusing on your breath. And I'll tell you, after years, that's not typically how I start my practice. I actually, for my own practice, if I feel really stressed out, or I feel like or I wake up, so physically, I'll tell you, I think I might have mentioned this as well, that when I wake up in the morning, I go immediately into meditation. So I haven't looked at my phone. I haven't, you know, I may have gotten up to use the bathroom perhaps so that I'm not distracted, but I literally go straight into, and I'm lying down. I'm really in a comfortable position. And I think I mentioned, like, Zen, that would not work for somebody who's really into the structure of Zen, where you're on a cushion and your posture is just so, and you know, all of that is just very fixed. And that you're reaching towards a posture that is in perfection. And that, you know, for me, that doesn't work. If it works for you, that's great. All kinds of different ways to do meditation. But for me, I'm just sharing with you. So I'm lying down, right? If I fall asleep, I fall asleep. I don't use a timer. I also live the kind of life where I don't have to, you know, get up early in the morning and be rushing off to work. If I did, I think I would probably, if I had to set an alarm every morning, I would probably set it for a few minutes earlier, however much time I wanted to practice. And so then I would have the time to do that. So that's probably what I would do. But my practice is I go almost directly, depending on, first thing I do is I check in with my body. If there's anything that feels uncomfortable, I breathe into that space. So I'm not necessarily focusing on my breath to start off, but again, that's a great, you know, focusing on your breath is an awesome way to start meditating. But I'll focus on any part of my body. I can feel actually vibration in my body, so I'm focusing on that. I'm breathing. Sometimes there's tingling in my body. Sometimes it feels like, I don't know how else to call it, but more like electricity, vibration. I don't know, but I feel that. I focus on those areas to see if they need attention or what they need. If I don't, sometimes I'll ask myself if I have a heavy feeling or something, maybe from a dream or whatever, I'll ask myself, what do I need in this moment? And, you know, usually I'll get a response and use that as a mantra. Maybe I need to feel trust or faith or peace or whatever it is. And I'll use that as a mantra as I go through. There's so many different ways. I literally, on a daily basis, there isn't one meditation I use all the time. It's mostly I'm asking, I have a sense now of what it is I need. And my meditation can go anywhere from 10 minutes to, if I do have to get up for something, to 2 hours, and anywhere in between. And I'm not timing it. It's just, I'll notice, oh yeah, it's been a while, you know? And like I said, if I fall asleep in the middle, great, you know, and then I wake up and I continue on my meditation. So I share that with you just to say, the 25 mindfulness practices are great. I think could be really useful in terms of getting folks started. And just know that it's always a journey. It's always a journey. But whatever works for you, you know, at my Sangha, the Sangha that I was going to here in Denver, people have been doing the exact same meditation for 15 years. So and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like whatever, really, when I say whatever works for you, I really mean whatever works for you. If something feels like, oh, I want to try that, great. If you're like, wow, this is working great for me, great, you know, keep it. So, yeah, so that's, I just kind of wanted to share what that looks like. So thinking for your own self of, do you want to try different ones? Like, is that part of your intention that you want to write in, you know, down on page 67? Or do you want to stick with, you know, 1 or 2? Or do you want to go through all the 25 practices again? Maybe you do, and again, I'm just brainstorming here. You could do, I'm going to focus on the first one and I'm going to do that for a week. And then I'm going to go on to the second one. I'm going to do that for a week and every day for a week. And maybe instead of 3 minutes, now I'm going to push it up to 5 minutes and do this practice for 5 minutes. And maybe you skip some that didn't resonate for you. Like it's your, you know, it's your journey. Suze, were you going to ask or say something? Did I see your hand? No?
No.
Okay.
But I was thinking along those lines of kind of starting from the beginning again and, you know, doing the ones that resonated with me and kind of doing them until I was ready to move on. And I'm not really sure what that's going to look like, but.
Yeah, and so I'm interested, I want to kind of open it up to folks too, to think, what might this look like for you? Because again, if you share your own, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, so trying to remember exactly what I did. I think I shared with folks that at the beginning I started off with an app, my very favorite app. There's 2 apps I would recommend. One is called Insight Timer. We're getting all of my meditations up on that, but you have access to those already. And the other would be Stop, Think, and Breathe. That's another app. And Stop, Think, and Breathe is the one I did. I haven't really used Insight Timer a whole lot, but I've heard amazing things about it. Stop, Think, and Breathe, I love. I think I shared this before. Did I already talk about it? Like what it does? Do you remember? Like, so Stop, Think, and Breathe, it starts off with the physical. So it actually has you do a body scan. And you get, you know, it says, how are you feeling physically right now? And you could say, it's like a scale of 1 to 5 of like, you know, great, okay, you know, fair, poor, whatever, you know, it has a scale. So that takes a couple seconds. And then you move on and it says, how are you feeling? What's your emotional state? I forget the words they use. But there's lists and you get to pick 5 words off of all of these lists that describe your emotional state. So you're now learning to check in with your body and say, oh, I'm feeling sad right now, but I'm also a little angry. And oh, I'm also feeling excited about something. And you get to put all of that in there. I mean, up to 5 words. But what I loved about it is that, first of all, it gave me the practice of checking in with what are my emotions right now when I hadn't, at a time in my life when I had no idea how to do that. So that was really helpful. Let's see, but also just recognizing that I could be holding what seemed like very conflicting emotions at the same time. I didn't know that that was a thing, you know, until I started checking in and realized, oh yeah, I'm all of these things right now, and that's okay, but I'm going to put them all down. And it felt really good to be able to pinpoint them and to actually verbalize or, you know, articulate that that's it. You know, that's the word. And so once it gets all of that information in there, and again, this just takes a fraction of a, like it takes probably less than a minute to do all of that, then it offers you based on what you've come up with for the day of all your things, it will say, here are three meditations that we recommend for you based on what you just said. You know, maybe it's a grounding practice, or maybe, you know, whatever it is, or maybe it's one for feeling joy, and they've got a slew of them that you can choose. Not only do you get to choose one of those three, but it tells you you can either pick that you could do it for 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 7 minutes. Like, you get to choose the time, the length of time, and it's a guided meditation. So anyway, that's how I started. And they also track that you're going to do this every day. Like, they track it so that for me, I was like, I didn't want to miss a day, because I wanted to, you know, I liked the idea that I could keep up. And then I think once I got to a month, you know, in a row, then I didn't use it anymore, because I had so many different practices under my belt at that point. So then I, you know, kind of went off on my own journey, and I don't listen to anything now. It's just quiet. So I can do whatever I need to do in my own head. Yeah. So again, I share that with you just to know there's all kinds of ways of doing this. Any questions or thoughts about any of that?
No, it's actually really helpful to hear that, because I like doing the guided, and it's kind of nice to hear the evolution. I think what's helpful for me also, and why I like the meditations, I like them short at this point, because it's easier for me to sort of maintain that, to not say, oh, I'm going to sit down for 15 minutes or half an hour or whatever, but to work up to that. So
yeah,
it's good to hear like all the options that are out there.
Great. Yeah. And also to know too, that once you start noticing the benefit that you're getting in your life from, you know, you think it's 3 minutes a day, how could that really be benefiting me, until you start to notice that you can come back to calm so much quicker than you used to be able to. You start noticing little changes in your life, and then you realize, oh, well, maybe going up to 5 minutes, not that the length really matters that much. Like, I'm not suggesting, oh, you should work up to 2 hours or whatever. Like, that doesn't work in your life. It may never work in your life, and that's great. When I do 2 hours, it's usually because there's something there's thorns perhaps that I'm dealing with, or, you know, something's come up and I'm actually working my way through it. Or I'm enjoying myself so much because I'm like a bird and I'm soaring through the air. No joke. Like, that's truly a common meditation that I have. It feels so good that I don't want it to end. So that's another reason it might take extra long. But so I would like to ask you all, what do you think, based on what you know, what you've heard, what you've read now, what do you think it might look like? Again, if we're saying it out loud to each other, we're giving each other ideas for how this might look. And it's really a brainstorming session for a few minutes if y'all are willing.
I think the idea that there are a lot of different practices to choose from it's kind of like revolutionary to me. I mean, of course there always were, but I think that's really important for me, at least, to be like, okay, well, I could try something else, you know. And also, like, sometimes the first time we did, like, for instance, a leaf practice, that was really powerful for me. And I caught myself being like, well, I just want to hold on to how that felt forever. And I was like, oh, don't do that. But, like, maybe all that was like, I want to try that again.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and because I can get really in a box I mean, we all do. And I was like, I was doing my walking meditation for a long time. And then I kind of stopped and I was like, well, I guess that's over, but there are like 100 other things that like I could have tried.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I love it. And I was going to say too, if you had a great feeling from that meditation with On the Stream, Leap on a Stream, oh man, just do that for a while. Just that. I mean, and being in a box around something that feels really good, I don't see any problem with that. You don't have to feel like you got to do 100 different meditations just for the sake of doing 100 meditations, right? Like there literally are thousands on Insight Timer you get to choose from. And you don't have to. If you find one that you love, stick with it. If it's continuing to give you the whatever it is you want to feel, if it's giving you that positive sense and you can see it showing up in your life in positive ways, stick with it as long as it continues to do that. Yeah, I don't see any reason to try 100 different things if something is really working well for you.
Okay.
Yeah. And as soon as it stops working quite as well, don't think, okay, meditation's over. Think, oh yeah, I've got thousands of others to choose from, for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Others. What's tomorrow going to look like for you?
I think tomorrow is going to look a lot like how today was. I'm trying to bring in a meditation practice every day. And I'm a huge Insight Timer user. I've been using the app probably for about 2.5 years now. And it's just a phenomenal support tool for me because it helps track when I'm meditating, which allows me to reference. And it also has cool graphs so I can see, how consistent I am. And it's brightly colored, and that's really motivating for me. And they give you little stars if you meditate so many days in a row. And, I get validated by silly things like that. So that really works for me. And, there are several spiritual teachers on there, in addition to Dina, who have just been people I go back to every single day. So, for me, it's a new one as I'm trying to integrate like a teeth brushing meditation. So that's my newest meditation I'm trying to bring in. But every morning I'm trying to do 10 minutes, and I set a little preset on the Insight Timer with, water sounds and a bell, because that's what I like. And I do that every single morning, and it tracks that. And then like later on in the day, I try to like bring in one spiritual teacher like lesson every day. So it's both my own just sitting in the space and then also listening to spiritual guidance. So trying to continue to do that every day.
Yeah, that's good. And make sure you write that intention down, because I think that's really important. That this is what the intention that you're setting. Beautiful. I would like to take just a couple minutes, and the next question on page 68, I think is important as we think about moving forward. And that is, what are some obstacles that might keep you from continuing your mindfulness plan? And there's space to write. So your obstacles that might keep you from continuing. And then the last one that I want to do together is page 69, which is how will you get yourself back on track when those obstacles actually get in your way? So how do you hold yourself accountable? How might we alleviate the challenges or the roadblocks? It might be that you set an intention for a specific time to meditate, so that maybe there's a reminder on your phone that goes off every day at X time, whatever time works for you. And you say, okay, I have that commitment to myself to make this happen at whatever time it is. Yeah, so think about what kinds of ways you might overcome those challenges, the obstacles. And when anybody's ready, I really would love to share these in particular, because I think these are the biggest challenge moving forward. Wanting to make sure that you have a practice that because it's not when, it's not really an if roadblocks come up, it's going to be a when. And so what can you put in place? What intention can you set? What kinds of things can you do in your life that will make it more conducive, that you'll keep this practice? And when I say this practice, whatever you decide your practice is, whichever the meditations you resonated best with you that you want to do again, whatever. What do you think? What are some, this is a brainstorming session now that might be helpful for each other.
Try and do it in the morning when I first wake up. Because I feel like if either that or when I finish working out, because I feel like if I sort of move on with my day, the day goes and I don't do it. And I think it's also a really good way to start the day. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try that, and I'm going to try to do it in the morning.
Yeah. I'm thinking also if you go to yoga, for example, I know you happen to do yoga. I don't know who else does, but, sitting in Shavasana, sometimes they only give you 3 minutes, but sometimes if it's a great teacher, they'll give you a good 10 minutes of Shavasana, and then you got your meditation in.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Others.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
I've been trying when I'm at lights a couple times during the day, like when I'm driving, to kind of just either breathe or think about being mindful, and just to kind of reground myself. I don't always remember to do it, so I don't know, maybe I should put something in my car to remind me, like breathe or something.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. You're so creative. You could make yourself a beautiful something that goes on your dashboard or somewhere that you would look at and be like, oh yeah, this is my.
Because when I do that, if I'm going somewhere, it reminds me sort of not to rush or whatever. And I think about your story a lot when your metta, when somebody cuts you off, like to sort of be more gracious in how I'm driving. And I do live in Boston, so I'm alone in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. That's such a great practice. Can I tell you, I don't think I've ever told anyone this, but that I used to, when I was first doing, I think it was when I was doing my yoga teacher training and I was really learning about chanting. I used to literally sit in my car, and every time I would be, I would head off to work in the morning, I would do Om out loud by myself. And it was this grounding. Om is the universal sound. It's the sound of the universe, with all the sounds mixed together come up with Om. And I was practicing my own, there's lots of different traditions of how to do Om. how to chant Om. And so I would practice what mine was. And so partly so that then I could teach it in yoga practice, but really it was for myself. And it's such a grounding practice because you've got the Om is resonating throughout your body. I don't know. I mean, like whatever works for you, that worked for me at the time. Yeah. Others, what else you got?
For me, it's I don't normally do anything by habit, but this practice has been in the morning, and it's my sunny time, and it's very quiet. And David is always asleep. My husband's always asleep, and it's just the two of us. And he has come to give me that space. I mean, he used to be like all on top of me. And there's something very comforting about this big 110-pound dog, and he leans into me. And that's how I start my practice in the morning. It's just feeling him and listening to and feeling his breath and his life. And then he goes off, and I sit and I go into whatever morning practice I do and I think of. And that's the one thing that I have been consistent. And it's a nice way to start the day. It's a nice way to start the day.
That is so, I love that. I mean, first of all, for anybody who has a pet, a dog or a cat in particular, I don't know much about lots of other animals, but I will say they are so mindful. Like they're not thinking about the past. They're not thinking about the future. They're just literally being present in the moment. And so we can learn a lot from them. So I love, Melinda, that you say that. Like, that's a beautiful thing. Like even, depending on if they're not panting, but if they've got like kind of a more calming breath, especially if they're lying there, and they that you could even match your breath to theirs if that feels good on your body. And you really become this, it's so peaceful. It could be so peaceful. Yeah. That's beautiful. Love that. And so your dog is not likely to not do that on any given day, which means that you would, that's a great initiator to remember, oh yeah, I'm meditating now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, he just leans right into me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, then I have to put him away because he can be a little rambunctious, but it's like his time too to relax.
Wonderful.
That's how we start our day.
Right. Anyone else?
I love, Melinda, as you started talking about your dog. My cat came. I don't know if you can see him because he's black, but he also decided to join our conversation. But I have to say, I also ripped out my headphones, so I don't know if you can hear me still, but
yeah.
So yeah, I'd say the two obstacles for me are my busyness, and also just like my blue periods. So when I have just depression, and sometimes I notice it, sometimes I don't. So I'm just trying to be smarter about when I have these moments. So if I know I'm going to be really busy, okay, I'm just not going to like schedule my agenda. And I loved your reminder to have the phone, like a phone alarm. So I think I'm going to start integrating a little bit more because that will be a nice, helpful prompt.
Yeah.
And then also for just like getting through my sad periods, just remembering that I don't always have to like force myself through like even a 5-minute meditation. Because even that can just seem so hard sometimes. And especially if my mind is in it's just really activated or something, then even that is too much for me. So, okay, instead I'm going to do a more like fun meditation, or, my mom's been encouraging me to like get out and go walking. Especially because my injuries from my bike accident, I can't go running like I normally do, which has been kind of making me feel strange. So, okay, I'm going to go walking and using the walking meditation. So just knowing that I have more tools than I sometimes remember. And then having them in a list like this, and having the book is just a physical source that I can go back to. And then the meditations are so accessible. So just trying to remember that I have all of these tools. I just need to remember to use them.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. That makes me think too that, yeah, it doesn't always have to be so heavy. Like we don't always have to be working on our thorns. You know, we don't never want to work on it. Like we want to get to those because that'll make our life actually truly less, we'll suffer less if we can. The more thorns we get through, actually, we will suffer less. And we won't be triggered as much by things. So that's work, that's important work. But when you're feeling really down or low or heavy, you can do one about joy, or you might not be able to do gratitude, but you might be able to do a grounding one where you remember, you know, the energy from the earth, and it's uplifting. So yeah, there's so much, I totally agree. There's so much at our disposal at this point of just whatever we need in any given moment. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in terms of moving forward, a couple of things I want to share with you. One is that I'm going to probably be creating more courses in the future. And so I just want you to know, first of all, so much gratitude for the first cohort to go through this particular course. And as I add other courses, if they're of interest to you, I'm going to give you all will always have a discount because you supported this course and me from the beginning. So I'll give you a discount code or whatever. If you're interested in the future of doing a different course with me, I would love to have you. I also, as you probably already know, I do one-on-one coaching. If that's something that you're interested in, we can certainly talk about that as an option. Another thing I was going to say that came up this morning in the conversation was the idea of meeting perhaps once a month or once or twice a month or something like that as a cohort to just check in. So it would be sort of like, maybe it's an hour-long session where maybe we'll do a mindfulness practice together and just check in on how everybody's doing and sharing where we are in our own journeys, because I've kind of given you, all this lots of ideas that we've all shared, and you get to kind of pick and choose. Well, I want to do it this way, I want to do it that way, and it's possible that coming back together again once once a month or whatever it is, whatever we decide, would be helpful to keep you on track, keep you accountable. Maybe you think, like Darren, maybe you say, I've been doing this one that I've loved so much, and you start to realize it's not doing well for you, and then we have a connection, we have a meeting here, we Zoom in, and we realize, and you think, oh, I could try this one or that one or the other one. So that, I'm just throwing it out there as a possible opportunity. I would love to offer if folks would be interested in doing something like that, and what might that look like for us.
I really like that idea. I am a little nervous about just sort of being done and and not keeping up with the practice. So I would like something like that to kind of keep checking in, or if roadblocks come up, or people sharing ideas about what's working for them, and because I found that to be really helpful.
Yeah, and also as you go through your journey, folks may end up with questions that they don't quite know where to ask, and I'm, if I can be of service in that way, I would be happy to do that. We also might consider the possibility. So this course starts again in the summer, June, and so that there might be. So in the future, when that course ends in August, perhaps those folks will come and join the call too, depending on how many. And I would probably have a cap to make sure if people had questions that they could feel comfortable asking and get it all in. I don't think I'd want too many people on a call like that. And I don't know, maybe they have their own time to meet that's different from this one. I haven't figured all that out yet, but I would love your input. If folks have an idea, like, first of all, would you be interested? Number one, number two, and there would have to be a cost involved just because there'll be time. It'll be time, but I was thinking even maybe a yearly subscription or something like that, you could do. It could be a monthly check-in. It could be a bi-monthly check-in. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. If that's, number one, if it's of interest, and number two, if so, what would you be excited about? Okay, Paul, we see you. So you say, I like the idea of a monthly meeting, so monthly. Yeah, anyone else have thoughts about that? Monthly, bi-monthly?
Yeah, I like a monthly. And then maybe have like maybe a series of not tasks, but kind of ideas of maybe how to integrate what we've learned or where we're going with our own practice. Maybe, I guess, goals. I don't know. But, and then see where we are in that month and how we're progressing.
Oh, I like that idea. Yeah, if I came to each month with sort of an idea or a question that I'm asking, and then you all get to respond and work on that for the month. That would be cool. Yeah. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I like the idea of monthly as well. I think
Okay.
that seems like a good amount of time.
Okay, good. And maybe it would, be sure to hold folks accountable and all of that. What would we want to do it on this night, given that this is the time that tends to work for folks, or the other option would be, picking another time like a Saturday morning or something like that. I don't know what feels good for folks. We'd probably start in May, would be my guess, like maybe the first week in May.
Yeah, I like this time.
This time is good.
Yeah,
This time is good. Okay. This time is good. Okay, good. All right, great. So we will, so here's what you're going to be getting at this point. You're going to be getting a certificate of completion. And Kiva, do you know if that's coming in the mail or is that coming email? Kiva, do you know?
I'm not sure if we confirmed that, so it's something that is up to you.
Okay, we've already got the certificates. I'm just not sure if they're going to be coming, how they're going to be coming, but you'll get them very shortly. The other thing that's going to be coming, Kiva is going to send out a survey, and there's several questions on it. I don't think it will take more than 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, something like that. So we try to keep the questions relatively short, but especially for the first cohort, I so appreciate you all, and I would love to have as much as you have time for to write. Please. If you want to keep it anonymous, you can absolutely do that. That's doable. It's a survey. It's a survey where it goes through SurveyMonkey, so it is anonymous. I did ask if you wanted to write a testimonial and you wanted to put your name with it, then that kind of makes it so that it's no longer anonymous. So let me put it this way. If you want to put your name on a testimonial, you can email me the testimonial and your name separate from the survey. Does that make sense? So yeah, so the testimonials would be great for future, for us to be able to promote the course in the future. And so that would be wonderful for me to be able to have if there are things that you feel you want to say in that way. Any questions or thoughts before we close with a short guided meditation?
Thanks, Steve. This was great.
Thank you. Thanks,
okay. Everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's if you would, let's do one last quick meditation. So finding your body in your seat. Let's put, if you would, a hand on your heart Maybe let's do both hands on your heart, so one on top of the other. Eyes are closed or gently gazing down. Take a deep breath in. And I'm going to offer us metta. So may we be healthy. May we be happy. May we live in peace and without suffering. I offer you gratitude, so much gratitude, love, compassion, and more gratitude. I cannot thank you enough for supporting this course and supporting me through this first inaugural session. It's just been a beautiful experience for me. And I just really want to thank you so, so much. So again, just know your hands are on your heart. Your hands are offering your heart love and support and peace. And your hands are saying to your heart, I got you. When you're ready, feel free to flutter your eyes open. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Good night.
Everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
See you next month.
See you around.